We recently lost the great Rob Reiner, and I've been struggling to wrap my head around how a person who brought so much joy to so many people could leave the world in such an unimaginably horrific way. I've been revisiting some of his work since he passed, and it's just hammered home what a uniquely warm comedic voice he was, and what a soulful storyteller he was.
I wanted to capture the sights, the sounds, the smells of a hard-working rock band on the road.
Stonehenge, where the demons dwell, where the fight to live and the do live well.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Reiner was born in 1947. His mother, Estelle Reiner, was an actress and singer.
I'll have what she's having.
And his father, Carl Reiner, was a comedian and filmmaker who directed The Jerk, created The Dick Van Dyke Show, and played the straight man opposite Mel Brooks' 2,000-year-old man character. Rob was the heir to a comedy dynasty, and he lived up to his parents' legacy. After years of playing bit parts on television and making cameos in his dad's films, Rob became a nationwide icon in 1971 with a starring role in an American remake of the British sitcom Till Death Do Us Part.
From Television City in Hollywood.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played
songs that made the hit parade.
Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days.
And you knew when you were there.
Dance for girls and men, women.
All in the Family was the most watched TV show in the United States for 5 consecutive seasons. It spawned more spin-offs than any other sitcom in history, and it earned Reiner 2 Emmy Awards and an additional 3 nominations. It was the definition of a smash hit because, despite being based on a British show, it captured the American zeitgeist of the 70s perfectly. It tackled racism and sexism and the Vietnam War at a time when the country was deeply divided over all these issues. A lot of TV shows at the time were too afraid to even touch these issues, but Norman Lear was turning them into comedy. He satirized the conflict between the hardcore right and the countercultural left through the characters of ultra-conservative bigot Archie Bunker, played by Carol O'Connor, and his bleeding heart progressive liberal son-in-law Mike Stivic, or Meathead as Archie calls him, played by Rob Reiner.
There's no doorknob.
Fancy that.
How are you supposed to open the door?
Oh, with the key.
Where's the key?
Well, if you could open that door a crack there, you would see the key sticking out of the lock on the other side of that door.
Archie and Mike embodied the competing political ideologies of the 1970s. They each represent the extremes on one side of the political spectrum, and neither of them will budge on their beliefs.
Arch, what David did took a lot of guts.
What do you
My
mean
own
a lot
father
of
doesn't
guts?
understand. Why should he?
When the hell are you going to admit that the war was wrong?
I ain't talking about that war. I don't want to talk about that rotten damn war no more.
By forcing these two characters to live under the same roof, All in the Family captured a microcosm of the intergenerational political debates happening across the country.
What, do you think the whole people of this country can say whether or not they want to go to war?
More than half a century later, All in the Family is just as relevant today. The issues have changed, but those divisions are still there. Rob Reiner could have hung his hat on All in the Family. Being Archie Bunker's sparring partner was enough on its own to make him a lifelong legend. But Reiner was just getting started. After All in the Family ended, Reiner set his sights on becoming a director, and right out of the gate he had an incredible run of some of the greatest movies ever made. All very different from each other, defining entire genres left and right. From his very first film on, Reiner had a 7-picture run of seminal bangers, fittingly dubbed The Magnificent Seven by Kevin Smith in a recent tribute. This is Spinal Tap, The Sure Thing, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men, all back to back to back. It's on par with Coppola's 4-movie run from the 70s. It might be even more impressive. Reiner finally stumbled with his 8th movie, North, which was slated as one of the worst films ever made. But it's not especially bad. Reiner had just set the bar so high that anything short of a masterpiece was instantly labeled a flop.
I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it.
Reiner was a true genre chameleon like Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick would try his hand at a genre like science fiction or political satire or haunted house horror and end up making the timeless masterpiece that defines and epitomizes the entire genre. The same thing happened when Rob Reiner made a mockumentary, a rom-com, a coming-of-age film, a courtroom drama, or a two-hander psychological thriller.
He didn't get
could make a video focused on any one of the Magnificent Seven to demonstrate what made Rob Reiner such a masterful filmmaker and such a special soul. But I think the film that exemplifies it best, the timelessness of his storytelling, the breadth of his comedic genius, and above all the soulfulness and humanity of his characters, and best exemplifies the joy that Reiner brought into the world, is Princess Bride.
My love is like a storybook story, but it's as real as the feelings I feel. My love is like a storybook story, but it's as real as the feelings I feel.
The Princess Bride was basically Shrek before Shrek, a satire of fairy tales that also satisfies as a bona fide fairy tale. It pokes fun at the well-worn conventions of fairy tales, but it also uses those conventions to tell an engaging story about lovable characters.
I was hoping this would be a happy ending.
The film doesn't take itself seriously, it doesn't try and convince you this is anything more than a children's bedtime story, but even so, you get swept up in Wesley and Buttercup's love story. You get invested in Inigo Montoya's quest to avenge his father.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Hello! My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die!
Much like Shrek, The Princess Bride puts a spotlight on the oddballs and weirdos that usually don't get any airtime in fairy tales. Ogres are usually nameless, faceless villains terrorizing the community.
This is the part where you run away.
But Shrek made an ogre the hero. It looked at the humanity and vulnerability and sensitivity of one of these ogres, and in doing so made us fall in love with an ogre.
They judge me before they even know me.
The Princess Bride did the same with Fezzik and Vizzini and Miracle Max.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle.
The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern, Chapter 1.
The Princess Bride slyly deconstructs the fairy tale by presenting it to us through a framing device. It keeps cutting back to Peter Falk telling the story to his grandson, played by Fred Savage, and they stop the story to comment on the tropes at play. When a shrieking eel is chasing Buttercup and she seems to be doomed in the first act, Fred Savage interrupts his granddad to comment on Buttercup's plot armor.
She doesn't get eaten by the eels at this time.
What?
The eel doesn't get her. I'm explaining to you because you look nervous.
I wasn't nervous.
The film was way ahead of its time with this kind of meta storytelling, using a framing device to break the fourth wall and address the tropes in real time. That framing device grounds the telling of the story itself in the real world and gives the story license to be ridiculous. The story is being told to us from a storybook, and the sweet old man reading it is free to deviate from the text, analyze the events of the plot, and hit pause for an aside with his grandson, just like any grandparent reading their grandkids a story. The screenplay adaptation of the original book was written by its own author, William Goldman, so he got the chance to retell his own story and critique his own narrative choices.
So here, I'm reacting to my own reacting, and I'm criticizing my initial reaction for being pretentious, which is honestly it's a defense mechanism.
Reiner's direction beautifully combines a classical storytelling style with his own contemporary sensibility. He evokes a strong sense of nostalgia by shooting on these old school sets and using these old school techniques, but the writing has a very modern sensibility, modern for the 80s, but still. The Princess Bride is a feminist, empowering approach to this kind of antiquated, male-gazy, ancient storytelling. It gives the princess agency. Buttercup isn't just a damsel in distress, and it treats her oddball companions like real human beings. It's basically what the Snow White remake tried and failed miserably to do, and it did it 40 years earlier.
Hi ho, it's off to work we go. It's rise and shine
And stay in line.
Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi.
Above all, The Princess Bride highlights the power of storytelling. The grandkid couldn't be less interested when the story begins, but by the end of it, he's really into it. He's gotten over his childish aversion to fairy stories and gotten invested in all the characters, and so have we. At the end, he asks his granddad to come back again tomorrow and read it to him again, to which he replies with Wesley's catchphrase.
Grandpa? Maybe you could come over and read it again to me tomorrow.
As you wish.
It's a great line to end on, and a really sweet callback, but it also establishes that sharing this story has given them a new means of communication. They both understand each other a bit better from experiencing this story together, and now they have a shared cultural language. The fact that Fred Savage wants to hear the story again the next day sets up Peter Falk to say "as you wish," but it also highlights the real strength of a good story. We keep going back to the stories and characters that speak to us and bring us comfort, whether it's falling asleep to episodes of New Girl, or reading the Harry Potter books for the 20th time, or rewatching a movie like The Princess Bride. A good story allows us to escape from our world, but also helps us make sense of it with concepts like heroes and villains and revenge and true love.
Fencing, fighting, torture.
Is this a kissing book?
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.